So this last Sunday was Bible Sunday. So a question to you. How do you really feel about the Bible? I imagine 8 out of 10 people. Confused, perplexed, dutiful, but don't really deal with it. And what I asked on Sunday was, well, what's our inner response to the idea or the fact that it was Bible Sunday? Again, my guess is 8 out of 10 people ambivalence or feeling a bit nagged. And I suppose then my question for those of us who have that kind of response to the Bible is why do you think you feel that way? My suspicion is it's a kind of I haven't done my homework feeling. And it's worth noting, of course, why would you feel any different? Like, it's beyond most of us to naturally understand the Bible. It's a collection of ancient writings spanning 2 or 3 or possibly longer 1,000 years of communities of faith. Some of it's poetry, some of it's prophecy, whatever prophecy is, some of it's kind of historical, some of it's mythological, some of it's blah. You know, why would you feel anything other than perplexed? My other question was, what do you think the church or God or Christianity thinks you ought to feel about the Bible? And I imagine part of the difficulty here is that we probably think that the church or God or Christianity thinks we ought to feel energised or devoted or joyful or fascinated or all of those sorts of good things. Of course, most of us, probably most of the time, actually don't feel those things. And there's this gap, isn't there, between this kind of how we actually feel and how we feel we ought to feel. And I wanted to explore that gap. Why is it there? What's going on for us? Now, I have a hypothesis on why that gap is there. And I need to illustrate that with the fact that I like beer. Now, I like beer most evenings. And the reality is that if you asked me whether I wanted to read the Bible or drink beer in the evening, it would be no contest. I'd want to drink beer. So why? Why is that? Well, beer, of course, as long as I've got it, it feeds me what I want. It feeds me when I want it. So mostly towards the end of the day, I'm tired. I want to switch off. I feel emotionally empty. And if I drink a beer, it gives me a buzz. It relaxes me. It symbolises the end of the day. Frankly, it makes me feel better. And the simple reality is if I read the Bible at the end of the day, it probably wouldn't make me feel better. And I suppose that's a reflection on appetite or need or desire. And we live in a society, a market economy, a consumer-based market economy that's fundamentally structured to meet those appetites, needs and desires. So when I'm feeling tired, low, emotionally drained, well, they've sorted out what I need. What they're going to do is they say, here's a beer, Philip. Deal with that. That'll sort you out. And what we're describing is a structure, the underpinning nature of that society is saying, well, you've got a need, here's a fix. You've got a desire, here's the satiation. You're uncomfortable, here's some comfort. And it means that culture we're in is a system of question and answer, need and response, appetite and satiation. And the reality is you and I are deeply bred into that system. Now, the reason I'm exploring that is it seems to me there's no obvious or direct appetite, need or desire that the Bible meets in exactly the same way. Now, this disconnect literally gets worse when we approach Jesus and when we think about the way Jesus answers questions. And I think this is a much more helpful inroad to the issues of question and answer, desire and need, appetite and solution. So it's worth thinking, I think, about the way Jesus answers questions, the way Jesus responds to need. So let's illustrate that with a few examples. Nicodemus in John chapter 3. Nicodemus is a rabbi, not a rabbi, Nicodemus is a Pharisee. He's deeply embedded in the religious traditions of his time. He comes to Jesus at night and he says, "Rabbi, we know that you're a teacher come from God, for no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him." Okay, Jesus' immediate answer is, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." Where's the connect there? None. What? Why did you go there? And again, in the reading a few weeks before, some people come up questioning Jesus, saying, "Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" And Jesus answers, well, he doesn't answer. Actually, he doesn't answer them. What he does is say what he wants to say. He says, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." And what we see so often through the Gospels is Jesus constantly unreplies to people's questions. And that's what I want to explore. Why? What's that about? Well, I think it's this. I think it's that our questions spring from the needs, the appetites and the desires within our hearts. But those needs, appetites and desires that spring from our hearts and that become our questions are not actually the thing that we need. So let's bring it back to my earthiness. So what if I came to Jesus and asked him, "Well, Jesus, quite honestly, I'd rather drink beer in the evening than read the Bible. Is that okay?" His answer would run something like, "Well, if you knew the gift of God, you'd drink of him and be an overflowing pub full of refreshment." And if you're sharp-eyed, you'll see that that's a retake of the woman at the well of Samaria when Jesus meets her. She's had several husbands, and he says, "Give me a drink," and etc. You can look it up yourself. What I think therefore is going on with Jesus in his unreplying is that Jesus constantly answers questions in ways that are designed actually to reconnect us to the ground of our being. And that ground is the God who is life. He's the one from whom we can become the person we're created to be. And so what we see is that if we're more used to living within our appetites, desires or comforts rather than the will of God, then of course his answers to our questions are going to cut across the very question. Our very beings are shaped by this thing we call the consumer market economy, to the extent that we simply don't know what the question is, and where the need has been relegated to appetite or comfort, wherein the solution to our appetites is in itself a means to suppress the very question that aches in our deepest self, the desire to connect with and belong to the God from whom all life flows. Let me illustrate that, because it's the addictive cycle. We feel the discomfort, the need, the desire. The market economy says, here's the thing you need: sex, drugs, drink, a holiday, a new car, doesn't really matter. So you work towards it, you get temporary satiation. All the while you're working towards it, you're suppressing actually the hunger that's there. But because you're working towards something, you're okay about that delayed gratification. Then maybe you get the thing for a short time, you feel better. Then actually something fundamentally realises your need hasn't been met. You haven't been met. And this is the point of Christian faith, that actually fundamentally our deep need is to be met, to be known, to be loved, to be held. So you can have your holiday if you like, but your heart's desire, your real need, is connection with the living God, not a new iPhone or a holiday or whatever. So what we need to appreciate, that when Jesus is unreplying, it's because actually fundamentally he sees beneath the fuss and the flurry of our hearts and souls and minds. He sees that in the end, what you and I need is that reconnection. So let's play that out a bit, if we might, in one of the ways that I think we would often pray. And it's to do with our appetites, desires, needs. What if we came to God saying, God, get me out of this suffering, this discomfort, this pain, or at least let me drink beer? I imagine that actually Jesus' answer would be no. Take up your cross and follow me. In other words, no, follow me anyway. Learn that having what you want is not the same as receiving what you need or becoming who you are. Learn that becoming a new you is actually what Jesus is about. And if you want to join in that recreation of yourself, then actually we still have to walk with Jesus, even when the discomforts, the sufferings, seem to shout louder than God. All right, so what's that got to do with Bible Sunday, and what might our response to that be? Well, I think it's rather simple. That actually fundamentally a relationship with the Bible must come from devotion, not duty. You won't get to like reading the Bible by gritting your teeth. And that's because in the end, you see, what we really need is to see the God who's behind the Bible, who wishes to speak into our souls through these pages. And so if at core, what you want is your iPhone or your holiday or your whatever, well, the Bible isn't going to give you that. The Bible, at its best, allows Christ to shine on us, answering the questions of our need, not our desire. So, in the end, I think our prayer has to change. It's really not, quite honestly. We don't want to say, Lord, help me to love the Bible. In the end, I think our prayer must actually be, how might I become more devoted to Christ? Now, maybe you are devoted to Christ. How wonderful. And maybe your prayer is actually, how might I be more devoted to him? But actually, some of us need to take a step back and realise that perhaps our prayer is, help me to want to be devoted to Christ. And indeed, some of you, if you've managed to get this far in this talk, actually maybe your prayer might need to be, help me to want to be devoted to Christ. Because quite fundamentally, you don't even know what you want, or whether you want him, or whether he's the answer. So perhaps then, as we edge from wanting to wanting to then finally being devoted to Christ, we'll be able to look on the Bible with wonder or delight and devotion, but my experience is we'll also look on it with discomfort, with disagreement, with tension. Because in it we discover the God who is calling us into him, who answers the questions of our being, rather than being distracted by our appetites for beer, or whatever your distraction looks like.